This episode is sponsored by Dr. Chrono by EverHealth, the #1 mobile all-in-one EHR. Built specifically for medical practices, Dr. Chrono includes an integrated feature that powers a seamless payments acceptance experience. Dr. Chrono Payments offers multiple ways for patients to pay as well as insurance credit card processing. As a Dr. Chrono customer, you can easily activate our fully integrated payment solution that will streamline your cash flow and help you get paid anytime from anywhere. Deliver the best patient experience with a fast and easy way to collect payments. Visit drchrono.com/payments. That's drchrono.com/payments to learn more about Dr. Chrono today. Is there a DPC clinician, tech vendor, or industry champion that goes above and beyond to further elevate the DPC movement? Nominate them for a DPC Innovation Award to recognize them for creating traction, embracing innovation, and demonstrating commitment to the movement. DPC Innovation Award winners will be announced and honored at this year's Hint Summit, taking place in Denver, Colorado, September 27th through 28th. Nominate a DPC innovator at summit.hint.com, plus get $50 off your Hint Summit 2024 registration with promo code My DPC Story. Direct primary care is an innovative, alternative path to insurance-driven healthcare. Typically, a patient pays their doctor a low monthly membership and, in return, builds a lasting relationship with their doctor and has their doctor available at their fingertips. Welcome to the My DPC Story podcast, where each week you will hear the ever-so-relatable stories shared by physicians who have chosen to practice medicine in their individual communities through the direct primary care model. I'm your host, Marielle Concepcion, family physician, DPC owner, and former fee-for-service doctor. I hope you enjoy today's episode and come away feeling inspired about the future of patient care, direct primary care.
DPC means creating a private practice that honors the humanity of both doctor and patient. I explain DPC to people as a framework to build a type of clinic that works best for me as a person while still bringing great value to patients. I'm Dr. Katrice Brooks of Quench Clinic, and this is my DPC story.
Dr. Katrice Brooks is double board certified in family medicine and lifestyle medicine. She has over 10 years of experience in primary care. She helps patients get the care they deserve with a doctor who listens, spends time with them, answers their questions, and she also helps her patients achieve their goals. She is passionate about health equality, improving lives by reducing medications where she can, and being a champion for patient and physician autonomy. She has spoken nationally at events like the 2022 Hint Summit, focusing on healthcare through the direct primary care model and practicing authentically. She opened Quench Clinic in October of 2021. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Brooks.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is literally a dream for me. It even feels surreal doing it and watching you here. I'm so happy to be here and to share.
It's definitely a mutual excitement. You and I opened around the same time, you in October and me in September of 2021. It's like that homecoming feel talking with you today.
Absolutely. You were my first conception of what DPC was, so it is surreal.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your history growing up and how you ended up being the doctor today that you are practicing authentically with your patients?
DPC helps you find who you are to practice authentically. Like we would come to it because of feeling constrained in some way. My story and what led me to creating a DPC and wanting to serve my patients in ways that I felt restricted was I grew up with a mom who struggled with drugs. In fact, my dad also struggled with drugs when I was a young child, but he became sober and he was able to raise me. My mom struggled with drugs my entire life. We reconciled our relationship. And after becoming a doctor, she actually lived with me until she passed. That kind of formed who I was growing up. I always really wanted to figure my mom out when I was a kid. I wanted to be a psychiatrist because I knew my mom had like internal struggles and I was just trying to make sense of it. Then in high school, I thought I maybe wanted to go to art school or, I have this desire to create as well. I went to med school and loved all the things. So I went to family medicine. I love the relationship with people. I wanted to do all the things, especially women's health and also pediatrics. That's how most of us end up in family. But knowing my mom, how that influenced me and my sister, it taught me early that everyone has a story. It taught me early that I wanted to treat everyone with grace and that I wanted to give everybody the space that they needed. In my life, I always felt invisible and I wanted to make people feel seen. And in the same way that I feel like my mom was this invisible person in society, I always wanted to see that person when they came to me in my office and give them the time that they needed. When people came to me, I wanted to fix all the things. We don't have time to fix all the things in corporate medicine. I bumped up against that 2 years in really early on, not having the time and wanting to really connect with people. I love connecting with people. That is the reason that I do what I do.
That's amazing. I am so honored and humbled every time I hear a person's background story because where we came from is all different. Everybody is a unique individual. You sharing that really ties in with a quote that I want to pull from your interview with the Milwaukee Business News Biz Times. You were quoted as saying that the math wasn't adding up. You had over 2,500 patients, and on any given day, you were squeezing in appointments with about 25 of them. You remarked how busy and behind you were. When you talk about your mom and her being a quote unquote invisible person and making sure that your patients did not feel that invisibility, I want to ask about how you went from that environment to learning about DPC and then deciding that you were going to open up Quench Clinic.
It was really during the pandemic that it was like, you know what, this does not work. There were times in corporate medicine where I was able to make a lot of money, where I was able to work and squirrel and do urgent care and make all the money, but I was miserable. During the pandemic, we were seeing less patients in office, but I felt like my work went up, actually. My emails went up, calls, phone, all the non-reimbursed, non-RVU amount of work went up, especially for these 2,500 patients that could not get in. My wait time went up to 2-3 months. I could feel demand because every time they saw me, they was like, I can't get in to see you. I'm getting pressured by administration to see more patients. But the paychecks at that point actually stopped adding up because one, they cut our pay during the pandemic because I didn't see all the patients that I should have seen the year of 2020 when it first hit. I had to pay them back. I didn't make my RVUs and I had to pay them back. That was my come to Jesus moment. Before it was like, you know what? I hate not being able to connect with patients. I got certified in lifestyle medicine because it was like, there has to be something more. And then I try to bring it back to my administration. They won't let me do Saturday visits. They won't let me do group visits. They won't let me do these tools that I think that I have that will help my patients. But that's okay. I'm still doing the coaching and the 15-minute visits that we have with the patients. I make them an hour and take from another patient. That's what we do in corporate medicine. We take and give. So I'm trying to do all the things, but I'm still feeling unfulfilled. But I'm loving my patients. I just see a lot of them. So much so that at times it feels unsafe. I feel like I'm drowning. I'm saying to administration, I need a scribe. And they're just like, you don't make enough to get a scribe. The other doctors in my office had scribes. So I guess they saw more patients. Every 6 months, I would be like, can you look at my numbers again? Can I get it? Can I get the extra MA that they have? It felt unfair because there were different resources, which is fine. But here I am feeling like I'm drowning. I dread coming to work every day because I'm behind in all my charts. I'm asking for help and I'm not getting it. So I was going to leave medicine. You know what? They're docking my pay. The weeks that they started taking the $20,000 out of a short time period, the end of that week, I put in my 6-month notice. At that point, I had found your podcast and I had found Dr. Una's podcast. You two are like the jet fuel and the lighter. The two of them together was like, you know what? That's not for me. Even if I go to the competitor, it's the same. Corporate medicine is the same. Even if they slowly ramp me up, in expectation is that I'm going to be responsible for all of these patients and lives and labs at the expense of myself. This for myself is not working. This is not the vision that I had of myself, of my life. When my mom was in hospice, that made me realize that the reason I was working was for family. I'm working to live my life. I'm working to be there for family. So I never felt good. Like even in my off time, I should be charting. I should be responding and doing this. And I just didn't like it. It was a terrible work-life balance. And I was going to leave medicine. But I heard your podcast and I figured I can do medicine the way I want to do medicine. I don't have to not see patients anymore. I can still do that and be happy. It seemed like Kool-Aid. It didn't seem real. It didn't seem like get this and have this and do this. And dabble in all my interests. I found your podcast and I put in my notice very soon after. I binged on both your podcasts. I put in my notice and I just started doing it messy. I had to give a 6-month notice. And so it was like, you know what? I want to kind of do it around my birthday. I put in the notice and just started doing it messy until I got there.
When is your birthday? Because you opened October 10th.
It's October 3rd.
I love that. What a way to celebrate your life. You took the reins to your own life and made a pathway for yourself to never have to make yourself or other patients feel invisible again. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. That's exactly it. I'm still okay feeling invisible. I still like to hide. And Dr. Una is showing me not to hide. Her business coaching is do the opposite of that. Your patients need you and they need to find you. And that's how they're going to find you, is you not hiding. But it's really to make my patients feel seen. I know that's why they all come to me. They feel seen.
I love that. When we talk about relationship-based care, that is really getting at the heart of it, especially when you're doing things like lifestyle medicine, holistic-based care. It takes time. With that said, I want to now jump into when you turned in your 6-month notice, when you decided I'm going to do DPC or not be in medicine anymore. One of the things that you did early on was you had, and this is not something that easy to do during the pandemic, but you were able to visit Dr. Amanda Primesberger at Roots MD in Verona, Wisconsin before you opened. And I want to delve in there because now that people are doing more face-to-face things, we have live in-person conferences. I want to ask, what was that like as this person who was like, I'm going to do DPC and here's a real life breathing DPC that I'm actually inside of and visiting and talking with the doctor who runs it. I remember when I saw my first DPC in person, it was Dr. Janine Rodham's practice Santa Cruz DPC. It was another layer of this is legit real. So I want to ask, what was your experience with Dr. Primesberger and how did that impact you? What did you draw from that to build on in your own clinic?
I just started talking to anybody who would talk. She was so gracious. She talked to me on the phone. Then I went to visit her. She'll talk to me now. It was amazing. Everybody in DPC is really so gracious. I haven't met anyone in this field or this group that's not gracious, but seeing it in practice. So I saw both of her clinic locations, seeing how she interacted and how her day today went at her small clinic was super inspirational because it was so efficient. It was one room, one office. Everything was this 12 by 12 space. That was amazing and inspirational because it was like, I don't need much to do this. I can go in an office space and I can hit the ground running. I can start this with what I have. It is tangible. Then when I saw the clinic that she's building, OMG, the clinic itself is gorgeous. It's in the style that I love. It's multiple exam rooms. And it really made me just think even bigger about DPC. I thought of DPC as initially my little solo thing. I'm going to have my people and I don't know how big I want it to be, but I want it to be manageable because I felt overwhelmed before. I was seeing too many people and I felt I was giving too much. Seeing Amanda's clinic, it's so beautiful. It inspired me to dream even bigger. Even if I have to get like a loan or something, if I want a big, gorgeous clinic, I can have a gorgeous clinic and hire people to work in the clinic. It just really opened my mind and in a way that's different than the podcast. The podcast is also amazing because it also opens your minds to types of clinics I wouldn't even conceive of, right? Here's this type and this type of person and how they make it work for them. And seeing it in person for a person who had children and who lived in Wisconsin, who dealt with the same payers that I dealt with. I ended up doing a locums job after shadowing her with the corporation that she worked for, which I think it was a competitor, but they knew her, which was also amazing to see her on the world professionally, to see her colleagues and what they thought and who she was in corporate medicine and that she is thriving doing DPC. Like she's totally making it work. Like I'm making it work with locums, like I'm halfway doing it, but she's doing it for real all the time. And it was really inspirational.
When you talk about that, seeing and talking with her live time really made you dream bigger. I love that because when we become business owners under the model of DPC, it's very new to most of us who don't have an MBA. And even if we do have an MBA, like it's potentially our first business that we've opened. And so when you talk about dreaming big, I want to ask about what were some of those dreams that you started incorporating in your future goals?
So sometimes I'm even afraid to talk about it because I feel like it's such a big dream, but it's really what I want. I think it incorporates all of the parts of me in a clinic, which is really what we're looking to do. So the dream for Quench, so now it's Quench Clinic, but the dream is Quench Clinic Fitness and Spa. That's a lot. I've thought about changing that to Quench Med Gym and Spa, like 3 words. I'm figuring it out. 3 words. But I would love to have a large space where I serve patients as their physician or their health consult, but also where there's gym space and where we do physical therapy and we do group coaching or group fitness classes, including yoga. And also because I'm interested in aesthetic medicine, like Julie Sparks. Now in my clinic now, I do peels and neurotoxins like Botox, but also having actual spa space because I'm all about like full wellness, just health and healing and all the different modalities of healing, sound bath healing, and just all of it, water, float therapy. So that is the big dream. And because I'm also in Dr. Una's class, maybe this can be more than one place. I don't know. Yes. I'm dreaming. Sometimes I'm afraid of my dreams, but I'm going to go after it. I'm just keep going. And I'm going to see where I end up.
I love that. And one of the things that we're going to talk about later is the fact that you have the series of videos and that you call the Be Better Show. And it's just right in alignment with that because you are constantly working towards that dream every day. You're at Quench Clinic and every day that you are your own boss. So I want to ask there, when you picked the name Quench Clinic, can you tell us about the thoughts going on in your head and how did you come to decide on Quench Clinic as a name for your practice?
Perfect. So I want to talk about this. I have another story that relates to this. I'm going to do the story, but then I'll talk about the name.
Sounds good.
Rebecca Behrens she's an EBS classmate. And so we finally met in person we had an EBS mastermind or business mastermind meeting. And so we're talking and I look at her jacket and it says Vita Medicine. And I say, hey, I know you. I was your episode on My DPC Story. And I remember your name, Vita Medicine. And I really like your name, Vita Medicine. I like how you chose it and how it brings life. So I love this segment of your show. It really personalizes these clinics so that we get to know the heart of who the creator is. And it's part of the story. And it's one of the best things about DPC. We get to pick our clinic names and nobody tells us what it is. So I love this. This is the most memorable moment of the show for me. Or I didn't even realize that's what I keep from the shows, but literally it was just like, hey, I know that this is like Rebecca Behrens' Vita Clinic.
Love it.
So yeah. So I love that you do this. So my clinic, Quench Clinic, it's to quench a thirst or a need. I grew up in the ghetto. I grew up in poverty and there were food deserts. I grew up in a food desert. Like when I learned about that, I'm like, oh, the neighborhood, where there's no grocery stores, this is normal. But there were also health deserts. There weren't hospitals and clinics. And so where I practiced at in Milwaukee, it wasn't a health desert where I was in the suburbs of Milwaukee, where I was initially practicing. And where I've moved to in Wauwatosa, I wouldn't say there's a ton of family practice clinics. There's certainly not family practice clinics that look like me. Sure. So it was to quench a health need or a desire for great healthcare in the community. So I wanted to be the salve or the water, the fresh water for my people and my community. Also, my last name is Brooks, which is like a water kind of word, like a brook. And so quench, water, Brooks, it was one syllable. I felt that I could use it for other branding if I decide to do any verticals. Awesome. I really enjoyed the water and to like really quench a need. So that's awesome. Quench Clinic.
And if you haven't been to Dr. Brooks' website, you definitely, you get that sense of what you're speaking about right now with the water being ever so present on all of your pages. So I totally love that. And thank you. So one of the things that also that I loved is like your website, it's not quenchclinic.com, it's quench.clinic. And so can you tell us about how that decision was made when you decided on quench.clinic versus a .com or .something else?
Awesome. You pull out all the stories. I have a story about this too. I have a friend who actually opened a mobile clinic in North Carolina, and hers is must.clinic. And so she was the first person that I saw that had a different dot ending. Uh-huh. But my other story about this is actually how I ended up joining Entree Business School is that it was March, or I had put in my notice and I'm like, oh, I need this website. Because the next step to figure out how to actually get a DPC is you do all the things on the checklist. So I got the bagels, DPC check. I was
my favorite. Love it.
I was doing the checklist. And so I had figured out the name. I really wanted to do Thrive, but Mitch Lee in Chicago, now he's in North Carolina. He has a name. I didn't know him now. Now I do. I went to a DPC Alliance and he's my friend. That's the DPC world. It's so small. But I wanted a website and I really liked the kind of clinic play on it. But I bought 20 other websites because I didn't know. And I spent like $3,000. And that night I felt so sick. What am I doing? I'm going to spend all my money doing this business. I don't want to know what I'm doing. So that same night, like the morning I signed up for Entre Business School, that was like what put the fear in me. And I'm like, I need help. I need somebody to help me with these decisions because I don't know the right decision. How it's going with the dot clinic, I like it. I'm a nerd and I like that it's different. Patients don't always understand it though. So I have to be like, it's www.quench.clinic. Though I like the simplicity of quench.clinic. And then some people try to do the .com after as well. But I don't think that's a big issue. When I look at my analytics, people are finding the website. But yeah, that's my friend also had it. And I thought, that's clever. I like that.
And just to speak to your success, just within the first month, you reached over 50 patients and now you have over 100 patients. And so the fact that it has been less than a year and but at the time of this recording, and you have that many patients who have found your care so valuable, I would say they're definitely finding you. So that's awesome. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you to Spruce Health for supporting the My DPC Story podcast. The ways we communicate have changed dramatically over the past decades, but technology and tools in healthcare have not kept pace. Patients want more access and digital convenience, as well as the ability to text their care teams. Care teams are inundated with more communication and rising expectations, but are still using tools and technology stuck in prior decades. Spruce Health created a solution for the tech-forward DPC practice by creating a communication product designed to serve both the patient and the doctor through intuitive HIPAA-compliant workflows, tagging, scheduled messages, and triage templates ready for use, whether you're on your phone or in the exam room. New users get 20% off for the first 12 months of a paid plan with code MARYAL20. That's MARYAL20. So check out Spruce Health today at sprucehealth.com or check out the link in the show notes.
You know what I find? I think a nice website is good. But my website, one I made, I still need to tweak it. And I need to go on Fiverr and get somebody, like I had somebody offer to remake it on a different thing. But patients don't really care that much about a website. Like when you start doing it messy, the things that we think we have to do that have to be perfect, and this is really what the business is, the patients don't care. It doesn't matter. The website is functional. It is able to take an enrollment fee or it's able to take the annual membership. And that's really what they care about. Yeah. I try to get to have admin time and think of ways to make it better, but the things that I think they need are not the things that they need. And that's, what I'm learning about being an entrepreneur, right? Like listening to what they really want and need. So rather than spending tens of thousands of dollars on a beautiful website that does all the things, I have a functional website that does what I needed to do right now. And when I have capacity to do more, or when I find the need to do more, when I'm trying to grow and it's not growing the way I needed to, then maybe I'll tweak it. Yeah. So that's also what I'm learning, is to do as needed.
And such amazing words of wisdom for a person who might be in your shoes before you decided to hand in your 6-month notice. So I think it's really important because sometimes we hear on the DPC Facebook groups, especially the ones for physicians, oh, I need this. And then you'll see the comments like, whoa, let's keep that overhead low. And what you say is very sage wisdom. So
And I returned all that money. After joining the class, I was like, I'm going to keep 3 names now, not 20. And I got all my money back and used it to buy a coach instead of spending it for websites that I'm not going to use. It's, you know what? Let me figure out the important stuff.
In terms of not necessarily buying websites, but if you're buying domains, there's different ways to go about buying them. And Google domains, about $12 a head, depending on what type of ending it is. But definitely, if you have something that's .md, it's going to be more, or something around healthcare. Yeah.
But Clinic, I don't think is actually that much more.
Yeah,
I think
which is
great,
great.
But not really. You can also do .health. So there's other ones. I thought because I'm thinking about doing the spa and the fitness, that I could then change the ending, and that's the landing page.
Yeah.
While I was just getting up to go, I did go to Fiverr and have somebody literally just create a coming soon landing page for $5. So you don't need much to start at all.
And when we talk about supporting small businesses, when we talk about supporting our own DPCs and our own individual communities, Fiverr is definitely a lot of individuals who are putting their skills out there to help other small business owners. So definitely a place to explore if you haven't been there yet. Now, I want to ask about how you found your space, because this is also something that I love asking for people who are in those first 3 to 5 years of practice, because you're going to remember things differently than someone who might have been in practice for
For
5 to 7 years.
So I'm so thankful for the space I have. I am subleasing from another physician for $700 a month. And literally I found it by knocking on doors. I didn't go through a realtor. I was in the area where I wanted to be. And I just started every clinic, dentist, acupuncturist. If it looked like they maybe did something medical or had an exam room, I was asking. I got a lot of no's. I would get cards from like cousins or the local restaurant to give to the front desk staff. I got a lot of front desk staff not sending me to the owners, and a lot of no's. But I got a lucky day. Actually, that day I found two spaces. One was like a fee for, they did cash-based care on their own, but they would take like a percentage, which I'm like, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. And this one, it was the owner of the building, and she was leasing to a physician, but he was out ill. So she was like, he could probably use your help. He could probably use the extra income. And she coordinated it. And I think because she wanted the space filled, she's helped me. In fact, she actually just put my name on the clinic's outside billboard to get me busy. I was on vacation, and I think she doesn't see enough patients. So she's like, we got to get you some patients. So it's people come along on the journey and they help you. Like when you start doing the things, like they show up. So I just knocked on doors, and eventually somebody said yes.
And I think that going back to when you saw Dr. Primsberger in her single room space, when we talk about keeping overhead low, and you saw that you can be efficient and you can be a physician with a single room, just with the space to focus on your patient.
Even after I saw hers, I think I listened to this podcast and somebody mentioned they were in their home and all sorts of things. The patients don't care. They really just want you. Yeah. Like the patients, I feel like my office, it's kind of mid-century modern. And in my mind, I want Amanda's space, but mine it's okay. And the patient's like, this is so nice. And I'm like, but they really just want you, and they would take me anywhere. And it's really about relationships and talking to people. And that's what business is. That's what entrepreneur is, just like taking yourself out of your comfort zone and asking.
When you were approaching opening day, this is another question that I love asking new business owners, new DPC owners, because again, you're right, within that first year. So in the month leading up to your actual opening day, what did you focus on when September was rolling around and October was about to hit and Quench Clinic was about to open its doors?
That's another good question. You have all these good questions. So I was ending my employed position. So I was actually like in a rat race to finish all my charts and get all the stuff done. And I had part of getting prepared to open was like every day or every working day, I did an hour of admin time. So it was like, again, making sure the malpractice was in place. And I had the supplies I thought I needed. But again, what you think you need are not what you necessarily need. And you should let the patients tell you. It was getting the word out about it as well. Although I did a lot of pre-enrollment. So I already knew when I opened, I had, I think 30 or 50. Again, now it's a blur. But I had people who had signed up. A few of them had signed up for the year. So I had a little nest egg of enrollment. So it was really excitement that this thing was really going to happen. I had a lot of trepidation though. Like the first month was like, why did I blow up my life like this? What am I doing? Katrice, are you having a midlife crisis? What are you doing? But it worked out, and there was a mix. It was one, I was really proud of myself that, and the same advice that I tell my patients, do, if you're unhappy, change it, take small steps until you get there. But it was a lot of nervousness as well. And I didn't have everything. I mentioned the failing forward. Every day it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to order labs, or my EMR is not working. I ended up switching EMRs and just all this stuff. But it was a joy. Like going to work when I did my first day was amazing. Like I saw maybe 2 patients, amazing. All of it, all the little stuff that I normally hate doing. I started doing prior auths, like all this stuff. It was such a joy that, I get to do this for myself. This is mine. So it was also a dream and surreal. Even now it's surreal. Like I'm so happy that I get to go to work and it's my clinic, and I can do as I feel. I can help the patients how much I want to. We create little workbooks. We have groups, and all the stuff I wanted to do, I'm able to do.
Especially with what you just shared, you're celebrating your wins. And I definitely would say that's something that It's really hard sometimes in the thick of the million and one things on your plate. And then you have to cook dinner and then you have to restock your stuff by ordering your materials or whatever. That it can be easy sometimes to forget even one win that you had that day. I love your authenticity there, because even when somebody is not necessarily seeing it themselves, when somebody like me is hearing your story, I can hear that the celebration there in your enthusiasm. So I just love that. And so now I want to go into your Be Better show, because I love when people have patient-focused material, ways to reach your patients in different manners. And for you, video has been working on TikTok as well as on your YouTube channel. On your Be Better show, you have different episodes, and you talk in your very first video that you did, progress over perfection. I want to hit that hard, because when it talked about you are in Dr. Una's business school, and this idea that you have with progress over perfection, sometimes there's this stigma of I can't start yet because, and then you fill in the blanks. But how did you use that mantra, that progress over perfection, and jump right in? And what would you say to others who might be hesitant to put progress over perfection in place for their lives?
Oh, I love this too. This is like Dr. Una's message. This is how we get people to the action. We, as doctors, we're such perfectionists, and it's important to be perfectionists because our errors can cost people's lives. So we are taught like it has to be right, and you have to check it, and you can't just do it. But it turns out life is not like that. Medicine is like that. Medicine has very little margin for error. In some ways, it's not. In some ways, it is experimentation with the patients. But it's really in the doing that anything happens. And I get caught up in myself too, in my brain. I have social anxiety and a lot of stuff of it needs to be right and it's not perfect, but really just the tiniest little anything will multiply if we do more of it. And so it's just doing something to get towards where we're trying to go. And that is life. That is starting a new diet, taking your medicine. Anything is, we are not perfect. We're humans. It's not going to be perfect. Like even in our minds, if we wait until it's perfect, it's never going to happen. My version of perfection, because again, we're such high achievers, is like this amazing thing. And as doctors, like our B+ work is pretty good, right? Like when you talk about the Be Better show, I'm embarrassed. Like I hate the show. Like it's so awful to me, but it does serve my patients. They come back and say, hey, you did this episode and I watched it and it really helped me, or now I'm doing this, or now I'm eating the vegetables, and I'm doing the episodes based really on the patient's needs. Like my patient asked me to do an episode about grief because they had just lost their mom. And it's like, you know what? I see this a lot. I deal with grief a lot. This is my wheelhouse. And that's what I'm telling patients, right? Like you don't need to be perfect. If you try to eat a plant-based diet, it doesn't have to be plant-based 100% of the time. It's literally anything, just being better. That's what it is. Just any little thing in that direction of where you're trying to go is enough, and it's something. And something plus something adds to more. And just starting. Just start and just try. And that's what I use in my life, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. Like it's just the littlest and just add it up. But what I also like about Dr. Una is that she is also a person of excellence as well. So it's not just any little thing. But again, our doctor work, our B+ is a slam dunk, right? There are people doing videos that have no qualifications or who don't have the MD or DO. So just do it. We have so much to give. All of us, like I get from everybody. I get from my patients. We all have so much to give. Just give and do. Be better.
When you talk about that, and I know it's hard to see ourselves, it's hard to hear ourselves sometimes, but we'll give you like so many compliments, because you can tell every episode you add the lower thirds where you have your name and you didn't in the first one. So you can see exactly as you work on your craft, as you work on what means the most to your patients and to you're learning from that experience, and you're putting those lessons into play the next time. So
I'm so glad you picked up on that. That's amazing. And so true. And I find it easy to do things that are service-based. If I'm doing this for a patient, I'm going to do it well for the patient, because I love serving. Yeah. It's so good that you picked up on that. You're right. It did get better. I got StreamYard and I'm going to make this better.
Totally, yeah. No, you can easily see that when you are in that bird's eye view. Like I get it when you're the one doing it, we are hard on ourselves. And so I want to ask there because as a business owner, having things like workflows changing, the needs that your patients have changing, how do you put into play progress over perfection when it comes to workflows at Quench Clinic?
Oh, great question. I also listen to the patients as well. So this past 2 months, I finally got a VA. Thank God, that has helped me so much. And we've had to actually work out. But that was something I was figuring out day one is like, when I sign up a new patient, how do we onboard? How do I get them to sign the form so that I can get their records released? And what is the workflow? What does that look like? That's a part of progress over perfection, because anything, right? The first thing that we have is what we have. That's, the first SOP, and we're just going to make it better. We're just going to improve it and tweak it until it gets better. And with my team, my VA, every time that like there's a hitch, we talk about it like, hey, that didn't work. Let's do it in this way to make it work. Okay, that we saw how it went that time. Let's fix it. And even my personal stuff, like I struggle with timeliness. So I'm working on that. So I had to create systems in my life. So now that I work for myself, I have to be at clinic 30 minutes before my day starts, because otherwise I'm running in and I don't like the way it feels.
Yeah.
And I don't have a boss to say, well, I do have myself, but to say that. And so I have to have these systems of I have this buffer time before I come in, and where I come in and I check the email, I do this. And I literally have a checklist. It's on whiteboards where I do it, that my brain works that way. I need systems. Businesses need systems. This is something that we find out with doing business, but I can go rogue too. And I have to have a way to check it. Anything you track, you change. Us reevaluating things, we're better. All the same stuff that I'm telling my patients, I'm using these same tools to build my life and to build, a successful life. So in addition to the things that I do when I get to clinic, so I have my checklist of what I'm doing for clinic, I have also a meta view of what I have to do every single day to make sure that my life runs smoothly. It's the little goals to get to my big goal. So these are my ABCs, or it's actually my ABCDE, and it's my 5 most important things. And it's specific for me. My ABCDE list of the day, things that I make sure to do every day. And I think that helps me grow as a person, and not as a person, and as a business, and make sure that I cover all the things. Like I have my big goal, and then I created these small goals, the process to get to the big goal. And it's my ABCDE, and it helps me get to the big goal.
When you say ABCDE, is that a mnemonic for something?
It's for me. To me, you can make one for you, or your top 5 things. It's just my top 5 things that I do every day. So number 1 is Ashtanga. So I'm doing Ashtanga yoga. So that's movement, right? So it's movement every day. Letter B is to be bright. And that has to do with how I'm eating. It's this whole bright line eating, a whole thing, but it's to eat healthfully and to be mindful of trying to eat my 5 servings of fruits and vegetables and not eating processed food. So I call that being bright. C is to connect, to make sure that I connect with people. That includes my family, but also it includes connecting as part of asking and with my business. So making sure that I'm connecting to my Dream 100 and just people to my contacts that I need to connect with. D is to do, and that's to just take action, to have every day to take some action. And E is twofold. It's to either encourage and to educate. And they're both E's, and they're slightly different. So encouraging myself includes listening to podcasts, staying in a good mindset where I'm staying encouraged in business and not quitting, right? Like just staying in community. And educate is reading books and educating myself. So educating about business, about medicine, whatever that I'm working on, education. It also includes books for pleasure, but I don't have to tell myself to do that. These things, if I'm not careful, I may not do them. And they're the work that's important, but not urgent. So I have to make sure that I do it.
Awesome. That's really hyper focusing on the things that are focusing you on you.
Me.
I really love that. Yeah. Awesome. How did you go about finding your VA, and how did you go about making sure that they were going to be a good fit for your clinic? Stay with us. We'll be right back. Have you tried an AI scribe in your clinic? Well, I've tried so many, and I can say Heidi Health is the best AI scribe I have come across thus far. With Heidi Health, I can create unlimited customizable templates for my notes to help me truly cut down on the time I'm spending charting. Template for pediatric well child check? Done. Template for weight loss management? Done. Some of my favorite things I've built into my AI template, beyond the general soap note, are having a list of actionables for our team to take after a patient visit, having the diagnoses listed, and creating an after-visit summary for our patients. Not only have I found Heidi Health to be the most helpful, customizable AI scribe so far, it's also more affordable than most out there. So try Heidi Health today and see how you can harness the power of an AI scribe for your practice. To get an entire month of Heidi Pro free, go to the homepage of mydpcstory.com and click on the Heidi Health ad.
Great question. I talked about this with a lot of practice owners. I found my VA at Hello Raish, but I had to go through a lot of VAs to get her. I think I tried a VA with Upworks, and I had tried specific tasks. And there's a lot of training with whoever. You have to have onboarding, and you have to have the expectation of onboarding. So I went through maybe 2 VAs with Hello Raish that one, we did the interview and I thought it was going to work, and just there was some natural disaster or something. And then I had a few interviews that I didn't think that they would be a good fit. But when I found the one that I thought would be a good fit, initially I would give her kind of tasks to do and see how she did it. And then I also interviewed her to see if her goals aligned with mine. Though I felt she wasn't super forthcoming with her goals, because even now I'm just like, what do you need? How can I help serve you? And I just want to be with you. And I'm like, and it might be something cultural. So after finding one that showed up consistently, because that's just a big thing, right? Are you doing what I asked you to, will you show up? Will you try to produce what I asked you to produce? Even if it's not right, we're not perfect individuals. So I don't expect her to be perfect. But initially when she came on, I had her watch a bunch of videos from my EMR to get comfortable. I had her do like a test patient and, do the things with them, try to get a fax with them and set up their profile. And then this is a tip that I got from another person in the business school, Karen Kaufman, who has an allergy practice, but to have her on FaceTime with me or on Google with me the whole day. So when I'm in clinic, we're both on Zoom together. And so she'll scribe for me during clinic, which is amazing. That was a big reason why I left my employed practice, was because they wouldn't give me a scribe. Now I bought my own scribe. If I was the person I am now, then maybe it would be different. But she scribes for me. She also preps the charts before the day before or whenever they make the visit. That's actually a process change. She was doing it the day before, but then her internet went down. I'm like, wait, so now we have to change this. Now when they make the visit, you have to prep their charts. But that's just a part of team improvement. So she'll sit on the call with me the whole day. She'll scribe, she'll send in referrals, do all the stuff. It's made my life so much easier. I wish I had done this when I was employed. It is life-changing for me. It's my biggest business expense. So with Hello Raish, it's $950 an hour. And like I said, my office is only $700. So I'm keeping my overhead as small as possible. But even with trying to keep a low overhead, to me, a VA is worth it for my life. So I went to Mexico for 12 days and then I went to Atlanta, and having a VA literally kept my practice afloat. She was able to communicate with the patients. I didn't even have phone access, but she did. I found her because other practice owners were talking about VAs. I'm like, what is this you speak of, a VA? And initially I had somebody try to help me with social media, just again, try to piecemeal it. But I love my VA from Hello Raish. I should have done it sooner. I need to get an office manager. That's my next hire that I'm thinking about. Or in the office manager, if she could do RN or, phlebotomy, that would be amazing. But my VA and me for now, that works out. I only see 5 people on a very busy day. So the rooming and stuff, I don't have to have an MA for, though it would be nice.
Well, I gotcha. And as you grow, you have the increase of patients and you have the increase of income to support that, and making sure that your practice is always feeding into that ability to make your patients and yourself feel valued and feel seen. That's a way to check in with, is this investment person, VA, MA, whoever it is, worth my money, because it helps or it doesn't help me achieve my why. So that's awesome.
Oh, one more thing about that. One of the reasons why I even got her was my patients were complaining, again, I was feeling over. At this point, my clinic had probably grown to 75, and it was this is more than what I feel comfortable handling by myself. And so a patient complained that she didn't like not having the Zoom link in the email that got sent out, and that things were just all over the place. And it was you know what? I want to provide better service, and what I was providing wasn't enough, and I needed help with that. So it was I need help. I need additional help. And then I got Kevin Mackey to help build an app. It could do the Zoom thing with the Servo, although now Servo offers that as part of what they have. But it was really out of my patient's needs. So whenever things are focused in that way, if somebody's telling me oh, I need this, I can solve that problem. I can fix that. Or for myself, things are falling through the cracks, and I'm creating a job that I won't say that I don't love, but is not supporting me in the way I need it to. That's not functioning for me in the way I need it to. And so getting help has changed my life. And my feeling about the practice now, I love my patients again. I don't have to deal with what time is my appointment exactly.
Yeah.
There's a buffer, and that works for me.
When you look at your everyday now with the VA on board, what does your week look like? Because you said 5 patients on a really busy day, but do you have time set up in your Serbo? This is block time for admin time. This is block time for marketing. What does your weekly schedule look like?
So I'm working on that. So right now, like I mentioned earlier, I am doing locums. I am not supporting myself with my DPC completely. And that's kind of a choice. I didn't want to create a business or a job that I hated. I didn't want to create a job that I felt trapped in, because I left corporate medicine because I felt trapped. So it was really important for me to build what I wanted to have. And so I'm still doing locums where I am strictly an employee and I see 25, 30 patients. But to me, that's a very kind of shift work. I go there, I make this money. It allows me to live the lifestyle that I want to live and float my DPC a little. So I have my locum shifts. I'm still doing quite a bit of locum. So I do maybe 10 to 12 shifts a month, still doing, a lot of that. But so say that's 2-3 days in my week. The weeks where I'm in Quench, my hours are 10 to 4. So I see patients 10 until 4. That's usually 2 days a week. Now I've committed to giving my patients these days, but I was having space in my schedule and I don't love that. So if there's not the demand, then I remove the supply. But so my day is 10 to 4. I try to get there or get to the office around 9:30 because I start seeing patients at 10. I get on a call with my VA at 9:30. We'll get into the same Zoom and then we'll do a huddle for the day of this is what we need to do. During that time is admin time because it's pre-patient visit. I also am working on scheduling 20 minutes of admin time a day, just so it's not an hour of admin time. It used to be when I was employed, but now it's shorter. So it's 20 minutes of admin time. And that includes scheduling stuff, but not necessarily doing the stuff. That's where I send out my ask or whatever I'm doing for marketing or my marketing stew. I'm not doing all the things I need to do. Dr. Una has very specific things that she wants me to, or not, I create the things, but things that I know that I should be doing. My marketing, things that my post and my shows. And so I have 20 minutes where I schedule that stuff. And then the actual doing of the stuff, I hire out to my VA to do as much as possible. So because I'm only seeing patients maybe 2 days a week, she's still doing 30 hours a week for me. So she is still full time for me because that's what Hello Race requires. So actually, I think they have 2 models. I've thought about splitting her with someone else, but I still have a lot of stuff to do in my clinic, all the records for the people and all this stuff. So she'll work on creating assets for me. So I'll send her like things that I'm working, like a diagnosis that I want to create, like patient handouts and things that we want to create for patients that we give all the time. Like I'm all about lifestyle medicine. So I'm all about giving people the tools. So she'll create that when we're not face-to-face working. I do schedule admin time. I don't usually take a lunch. I don't know why I'm abusive to myself, but because I'm only working 2 days a week, I'm just going to power through this. And it's 10 to 4. That's my dream life. I dreamed of waking up on my own and then going into clinic and it being leisurely. And that's exactly what I'm doing. In terms of like marketing stuff, so I have the EntreMD coaching weekly. And so then I schedule time, usually after that, to work on stuff, but I'm not doing it the way that I should. I need to do better. So I'm working on that. The recent mastermind was like, I'm doing it. So now I'm doing it.
One of the things that you had highlighted is when you come to clinic in those 30 minutes before you start seeing the patients, you have your checklist. So can you give us a little bit of an insight as to like Dr. Brooks's everyday checklist that you go through before you start clinic?
Oh, sure. So I make sure that I clean my space. Usually it's clean from the night before. So I clean my space. I check my emails. So I look at all my emails. I check my Wix site to see if anybody has signed up. I check Serbo. Then I check the patient portal to see what messages came in overnight. I have Spruce. I also check that, but usually my VA will create encounters in Serbo for me from Spruce. So I check that and respond to all the patient's questions that I missed overnight. I try to do that daily because we're DPC. So I try to just get back to people, even on the weekends. Right now, that's why I like the 100 number, because my patients are so low demand for me personally. So I check all this stuff. I check my email, I check Serbo, I check Spruce. At that point, I tried to put in like 10 minutes on Facebook, checking that as well, and just responding to people and participating in communities and being present. At that time, I'm also supposed to post my TikTok that I've either queued or that I do, but they're 1 minute things. I also do them in between patients if they're quick, like a 1 minute thing, but I'm working on that. What else? I review the patients that I'm going to see. Usually I've done that the night before, but I'll check their records, and my VA will prep the chart for me. So they all are already prepped. So I'm reviewing like, okay, we're doing that. What else? I'm checking the mail when I come into the office because usually, it's a private practice. So I've gotten, new orders and medicines and all this stuff. So I go through that. I'll put some of that up if I have time to open the boxes, but if it's overwhelming, we set it to the side until the end of clinic. What else am I doing?
That's a lot for 30 minutes. So
is it?
It's really great.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. It has to be done in between the patients, depending on what it is. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's nothing. If I didn't really get some messages and not too much has happened.
I can just see sometimes when my days are like that, the emails or the messages in the portal, because I'm also on Serbo, I'll be like, oh, I have to go open their chart from this hospital to pull out that record because I didn't have that in my system or whatever. So sometimes it's a rabbit hole per message that I find. So yeah, but I think that, how you said, like if it's too overwhelming or it does not need to be done this second, it can have its time set for a time that will work for you and your patient. So that's great.
And I also create buffers between each patient. The max, I have hour-long visits in person and I have 40-minute virtual visits, but all my visits have buffers because one, I talk too much and I have poor boundaries that I'm working on. Sometimes I'll take the length of the buffer to have the visit, or after it's just to prep and to do all the other little admin stuff or the stuff that comes up, because a lot of stuff comes up in clinic every day, little stuff.
It's so interesting that you say that because there was a practice that I saw where in their scheduling, it said the visit is 15 minutes, but you're scheduled for 30 because 15 minutes of that is for recentering physician wellness and admin time. And when we talk about transparency with our pricing in DPC, it was a different level of being transparent with regards to these are the boundaries of the time that you will be given. And this is why those boundaries are in place. And then I love even when we talk about boundaries, I just want to throw this in there because of the tie with Dr. Primsberger. She had her ice fishing post and it said like, doing virtual visits today or something like that. And I was like, that it's learning from each other, that our own boundaries can be even more finessed sometimes, that can really help. But I love your gem with regards to if it doesn't have to get done right now, we can park it and address it at the time that we set aside for that.
Yeah. I love that idea about being transparent about the timing, because even now on Serbo, I think that the patients can see how long the visit is, but they don't see how long that I've scheduled it for. And I'll tell them, oh, my next visit is a little later, but I need this time to recoup. But I love even telling them that, hey, we're going to have some time afterwards where I focus on recentering just to be most present for the next patient. Because patients love that. What we find out is we're human, and it's just really a shared human experience, and it's navigating that.
And when you remind them, because I know that I've had to do this, especially in fee-for-service, when I was always running behind, I would tell people, but that you would get the exact same care if you needed it. So I love that. When we talk about boundaries, one thing that I want to ask you is something that you also brought up in one of your episodes of the Being Better show, or the Be Better show, is you had strategies around life that you had learned from an NBA basketball all-star.
Yeah.
And one of those things that I thought was so interesting, because sometimes it can result in us pressing our boundaries and having to recognize them, is to say yes. So you talked about when you have opportunities, and they're amazing opportunities, and wanting to say yes to the world because you're open to opportunities, you're open to growing your practice, you're opening to more people understanding your value. I want to ask, how do you work through saying yes and putting that spirit out there, and also respecting your own boundaries to put a hold on, I took a little bit more on today than I needed to. That's one question I love in terms of the space that we're in as DPC physicians and business owners. So I wanted to ask that for you.
Very good question. And it's hard. One, when you're a DPC and an entrepreneur, we could say yes to everything, right? Like there's not these external stuff, but there is, like there's kids and other stuff. So I love the saying yes and being open, But what business and being an entrepreneur has also taught me is also the value of saying no to stuff. Because by saying yes to stuff, I'm also saying no to some stuff. Because in order to do that stuff, I can't be in two places at once. So I've gotten even stronger doing DPC and saying no to stuff and letting people know my boundaries up front, because I want to be so transparent. I'm now like, hey, by the way, I'm this is going to overwhelm me and I might shut down. So I want you to know that, right? Or being scared and saying yes to opportunities, because that is how we grow. And I come upon things that I fear a lot. Like I mentioned, I have social anxiety. So this is all really a stretch for me. Although the more you do it, the less of a stretch it is. Here we are just creating, but saying yes to those things and just doing it messy, being better, showing up, being scared, and just doing it. But learning and knowing so well to also learning how to say no. And it's so hard to say no to patients, but DPC also forces me to do that. Like people will call and they are just like, oh, you really charge that? And I do. That's really my price. I'm sorry that you can't see me and that, it's not in your budget for what you're valuing and you would rather use this, but that's my boundary. In order for me to live and create this thing, I have to not bend for that, right? I have to not change my boundaries. And then I've gotten so much clearer in that doing entrepreneurship. In fact, I've heard and I probably said this maybe, one of the best parts about building this business is who we become and building, right? Like I'm a better person now and clearer on who I am. And it's easy to say yes from a place of clarity and authenticity. Like I'm able to say that aligns with what I want to do. Yes, let's do that because I'm clear on who I am, who I am in this world, what I'm trying to give, and doing every day makes it clearer. And I'm able to say no to some stuff too, because again, I would have to take some from somebody else or from something else in order to do that. So I'm clear on what is really important to me.
And one of the things you had said yes to was this interview that you did with the Milwaukee Business News Biz Times. And so I know I quoted that in the beginning, but the title of the business article was Wauwatosa Doctor Launches Out on Her Own with an Alternative Clinic Model. And so I wanted to ask there, because when people have the opportunity to be featured in a public forum, newspapers, radio shows, whatever it is, I want to ask about how did you come to be interviewed? And when the interview was done, did you participate in the name of that article, or did the journalist create that name herself?
All right. I have some answers for you and I have stories as well. So you are also a part of this story, as a lot of my stories, because I do find your podcast so valuable. So I think there was someone, maybe the doc in San Francisco who does like the LGBTQ, but he got a mentor from the SBA. And so I did the same thing. After listening to the episode, I took action and I reached out to them and I got a mentor, like a SCORE mentor with the SBA. And so then he hooked me up with this interview. Hey, I know this person. And so literally through networking and meeting people, I got interviewed for this story. I had no decision in any of it. Like she just interviewed me and made what she wanted to make, which was nice. It was a flattering article and I'm very thankful. It was through his connections that I got this, and you don't have to pay the SBA anything, right? Like they just want to help you. So another great resource. This guy still helps me and mentors me through you. Thank you.
Awesome. No, and the score.org, if people are not aware, that's where to start to find your mentor locally. And you're so right. I have a SCORE mentor myself. I actually attended, this is so funny, but SCORE offers business classes. So they can be series of classes around social media, around your business canvas, around networking in person, but you don't necessarily have to attend SCORE classes in your neighborhood. So if there's something virtually offered, I was attending classes in Rhode Island at 7:00 Pacific time because they didn't have those classes going on in my local SCORE chapter. And so even if you have a SCORE mentor, your SCORE mentor can help you, but it does not limit your access to other SCORE classes out there. I'm so glad you brought that up. I find score.org an invaluable resource. And Dr. Nasser Mohammed is who you were talking about. Absolutely. He mentioned that. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And one of the things too that I want to ask is, when the journalist came, did that person bring along with them a photographer, or did you provide headshots for the article?
It is a new age. I never met the journalist in person. It was a phone interview. So those were professional shots that I already had, because on the DPC checklist, it was get, professional shots. So when I was still employed in, I don't know, May or June, the year prior, because it just came out in January, I did professional headshots so that I could do media stuff, because I'm a checklist person, and it worked. And so now I use them all the time. So these are assets that I had different looks in one day, and I'm still using it.
The value of headshots. I cannot
Yeah.
agree with you more, because you never know when you're going to need them. You never know when someone's going to ask for your CV. So those are things to always have on hand lifetime, so that you're able to shoot out, oh yeah, you need XYZ. Yep. Sure. I got a headshot for you. Sure. I got a CV for you. But definitely.
And it wasn't that expensive. It was, and on the grand scheme of things, and fun, right? Like I felt like a celebrity. It was fun to do headshots.
That's awesome. And no, you have some great ones. And, especially with that article in particular, you have the shot where you're on the blue couch, and it's just it's so in alignment with your brand. So I love that. Now, I want to ask a specific question about your practice, because you offer aesthetics. And when you talk about your big goals, incorporating a bigger space with physical therapy, with group sessions and everything that you talked about, one of the things that you're currently offering is aesthetics. And being a woman and a physician of color, I want to ask and highlight on that, because providing aesthetics is one thing, but providing aesthetics for different skin tones and being able to treat people appropriately based on their individual makeup. I want to ask about how you approach that in your everyday aesthetics care to your patients.
Oh, I love this. I love that you asked this, that you also picked up on this. You're so astute. In Milwaukee, there's actually, I don't think there's a Black dermatologist. So in my past 8 years of practicing in my clinic, I was doing, I wouldn't call it quite aesthetic medicine, but I was doing a lot of Black skincare, a lot of derm for skin of color, because my patients, they could go to the dermatologist, but they would often come back to me, or they wouldn't want to. And so it became just this passion of mine, similar to mental health. So treating skin of color is a passion of mine, also because I have skin of color. And so it was just learning about myself and skin, and I love it. And it is a special set of skills. And it's not that, it's like peds in general medicine, right? Like children are not just little humans, right? We can't use the same things, and we can't just assume that things are the same, but in smaller doses. And so skin of color is also like that. And so I'm doing lots of learning. I feel like I'm doing my own residency on aesthetic medicine. I found a mentor in aesthetic medicine. I'm mentored by Dr. D. Fungi, but there's the Julie Gunthars and the people in DPC that also do aesthetic medicine that I also follow. So I joined aesthetic groups. I've done aesthetic CMEs, and it's just a whole new kind of pivot. But to me, it's so much fun. Like, I love it. I love this vertical in my practice. For me, my ideal client or my ideal patient is that same person, right? So my ideal patient is like a 40-year-old woman with some kids who's probably, a person of color. They're also interested in their skin like me. So it goes right in line. I've had a patient who, she was actually on FMLA because of mental health. Like, she was having a really hard time with living her house with anxiety and depression and lots of stuff. But what she really was fine on focusing on was a skin regimen. Like, when we would have our visits, and she would be like, yeah, I'm, the structure that you gave me for my skincare, I'm still doing. To me, I couldn't even get her to go on a walk, but she was willing to do this self-care. And so, our appearance and self-care, and it's a really kind of complex thing. And I find that similar to mental health, it's another kind of branch of medicine that I do that my patients benefit from. It fills my cup as well.
One thing I want to ask on going off of that is, when you talk about CME, when you talk about your mentorship that you've had personally, I want to ask, for those people who are taking care of skin of color, what resources do you recommend specifically that they look into, whether it be CME classes or resources? Because I know that there was, I believe, a medical student in the UK who was creating a textbook about dermatology for skin of color specifically. And the dermatologist who was talking, that I was listening in on, had no idea about this textbook. So I wonder what your best resources are.
Yeah, I actually have a textbook. It's a skin of color textbook that is like my Bible, and it's written by lots of Black and Asian dermatologists. I follow a lot of them on social media. So Carolyn Robinson is a big one in the Chicagoland area. In fact, Carolyn Robinson is the reason why I've first found out about DPC, because she does DSC, direct specialty care. So I was on her website, like about to go see her. And she was like, oh, I don't take insurance. And I'm like, what's that? And I think that's why I went to the podcast store and I found you, honestly.
In terms of best resources, if other people are looking specifically for resources centering around dermatology for skin of color, what resources would you recommend?
So a great textbook that I use and consult all the time is Taylor's Dermatology for Skin of Color. It is wonderful. It has color photos of conditions in Black skin and skin of color, which you don't typically find. So I use it all the time. I open it for patients in the room. I also have, I think it's CEO's Botox for Asian Skin. So that's in terms of textbooks, but I also follow dermatology content creators. So again, there's Dr. Carolyn Robinson. There is Dr. Hartman. His name starts with an E. I can't think of the first letter, but they're all on Instagram. They're dominating Instagram. Follow them because they'll also show you how to use Instagram for physicians and how to teach the public. So they're just good to follow in general, but they create content for skin of color and just for patients. So they're also good resources. And there's always CMEs, and there is the Skin of Color Society that they have CMEs. So lots of resources. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. So I will include those in your blog. So now I want to close with a big question. Now that you are in DPC, you have over 100 patients, you have your VA, you have your checklist, you have your goals. What would you say to somebody who is in fee for service or is in training to become a physician, either employed or a DPC physician? Because when you talk about what you pick up from other people's interviews, I would love to hear your perspective because you have heard so many stories, but you also have your own take on things.
So I want to provide hope. And at this point, if you're this deep in the podcast, hopefully you've listened to the rest and they're all gold. There is better out there and you can have better and you can create the life you want. We are not stuck and we're not victims and we can do it. And even if it doesn't look like someone else's, you can create your thing. That is the beauty of the time that we live in now. It's do it. If you are unhappy, you do not have to stay unhappy. I felt so long, so hopeless, really so hopeless. And then I found you and I found Dr. Una and I started asking the questions of why am I unhappy and what really would make me happy and doing self-healing. So really get to know yourself and what's going on internally because you have one life to live. We can't live our lives for other people. We have this one time on this earth and we need to if you want to make the most of it, you don't need to do anything. should you? But if you feel the desire for more or you want to make an impact in your own way and you have this spirit, then you should do it. And maybe it's for you, but it's okay if it's not for you. Because I think some people do DPC and find maybe it's not what they thought it was. I found the opposite. I love it. It is more than what I thought it would be. It is done for me more than what I thought it could. But if it's not, that's okay too. Find your thing, whatever it is, right? Be true to you and walk in that. And you don't have to apologize for who you are to anybody. You can just be you and do what serves you and makes you the best you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for joining us today.
Thank you. This was so good. This is, again, literally a dream. A year ago, I was listening to your podcast. It is crazy that I'm on it, really, because it changed my life. It was really a vehicle that like I said, you gave me a smorgasbord of options of how I could practice and I could put my own flavor here. And here I am in real time doing it with the real clinic. And it's amazing. It's amazing we can do that. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Just fills my heart and it definitely helps me feel my why. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Next week, look forward to hearing from Dr. Aliyah Gupta of Family First DPC in Hinsdale, Illinois. If you've enjoyed the podcast and you haven't yet done so, subscribe today and share the episode with a physician you may know who needs to hear about DPC. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify now as well, as it helps others to find all these DPC stories. Lastly, be sure to follow us on social media. If you're wanting to continue learning more about DPC, check out dpcnews.com. Until next week, this is Marielle Concepcion.